So good to be here. Amol and team ETBFSI, sponsors SAS, and all my colleagues. There couldn't have been a better occasion than today, because as they say, the best time to plant a mango tree was 15 years back, and the next best time is now. So when we are speaking about this fighting financial crime, all of us, we need to pause, irrespective of what the nice music that was played in the intro video. I think this is serious stuff. There is no song and dance. Very, very serious stuff. And as someone who is looking at risk management now for over 4 decades, it's like an action movie where it's very difficult to predict, but predict you must. It's very difficult to analyze, but analyze you must. Very difficult to templatize, and templatize you must. So what you are doing in fighting financial crime, in the next 15 minutes or something, I have no aim at providing all of you seniors any gyan, but surely I aim at provoking you to think. Because as Bertrand Russell told, only through thinking that we evolve, not by passing our time as role holders, as solution providers. Even the SAS leadership, when they come and meet me, I tell them the same thing, because probably one model of fighting financial crime is not enough. Because as we started with transaction monitoring, how do we, in a relationship, the first manifestation of anything is a transaction. But we need to look beyond those transactions. So that's why I told that beyond transaction banking. And what is that beyond transaction banking? Let's first see the size of the gorilla in the room. Now, United Nations says that roughly about 2% of the world GDP goes towards what we call the financial crime related activities. Now, financial crime related activities could be terror funding, trafficking women, funding activities which are not permitted, regulatory arbitrage to make quick money, stashing away, whatever it is. So last year, the broad estimate was that the global GDP was 110 trillion. So if 2 to 5% is the money that is played in the financial crime sector, we are talking about roughly around, let's say, 2 to 4 trillion US dollars. Now, there is another data point which is monitored, that all the financial, analytical, transaction monitoring, surveillance software put together, how much has been detected? Is about $22 billion. The universe is about $2 to $3 trillion. And with all these heavy lifting, we have been able to intercept about $20 billion, which is probably less than a percentage of the universe, or the whole football field is so big, and it is like the small space that one player occupies, and we are getting satisfied because if we again analyze, what we are looking at is that in the last 1 decade, compliance and financial crime detection and prevention related investment from the BFSI sector has gone as much as 17 times. That's what Gartner says. And of course, if regulators are pushing, if the organization is suffering reputational losses, it will create defenses. If there is a Pakistan which is watching to attack India, India will spend money in buying aircraft and buying missiles and buying air defense system. It's all fine. So the needle goes unmistakably towards one thing. Probably it is happening in multiple points, which is not visible. So this spy aircraft or the spy drones are able to penetrate our defense system and are able to strike, and with all these massive investments, we are probably only looking at transaction monitoring. So just pause and ponder. So it's very fashionable to say that, AI and this, AI in the last 2 years, in fact, Amol invited me to another meeting where I spoke about AI, and that time I was very firm in my belief that AI continues to be a hype. But in last 2 years, I have changed my opinion because the use cases have been established. But what is the key 2 or 3 things that leaders like you must keep an eye, at least be aware, and whenever a vendor or whenever a solution provider or whenever a system integrator or whenever a research analyst is trying to speak to you about financial crime, what are the key points that you should try to extract? And that is where I want to, bring your attention to. The first, of course, is the going from beyond transaction monitoring is behavioral intelligence. Today there are things, there are networks, there are ecosystems, and there are personas. And in a digital age, all these 4 things are the 4 moving parts. Or there are probably many moving parts. We need to look at this behavioral analysis, and ecosystem collaboration will be of critical importance. Now my friend Negi is here, he is the head of risk of a very large bank. Now risk is collecting data, transaction is collecting data, digital is collecting data, compliance is collecting data, and they don't speak with each other generally, except in meetings, except where something has hit your solar plexus and you are completely immobilized. So what we require is aggregating network behavior as the first step. Inside the enterprise, across an industry, between the industries, between various wings of a country, whether it is threat intelligence, whether it is industrial intelligence, whether it is purchased intelligence or generated intelligence through machine learning, and across the globe. The first thing is that. So my advice to all of you is first ensure building brick by brick in small and big ways. Probably I could influence, because I advise multiple banks, I could influence at the board level. I will operate at a different level. But wherever you can you bring this weaving together of knowledge? Because from this weave will emerge what we call beyond transaction. See, transaction is essentially detecting post facto. When we are talking intelligence, it is called ex ante, before the things has happened. So this is the first thing, and we need to work on that. So what we need to look at, couple of things that came to my mind, and I was, as I was thinking in the car, what should I speak? One is, one challenge before all of you will be eliminating what I call the false positives. Because when we put a lot of computer doesn't have a mind. If your algorithm, making an algorithm perfect is the most nightmarish computer problem that humankind has faced. So what you do, for example, when anti-money laundering software came, and I was in US working that time, and so I saved one person from doing a manual check about who are the persons who are appearing in the entity list. And I had to put 4 persons to check that the software result to eliminate false negatives. A Mahinder Singh, if I put a search in the anti-money laundering, there will be 60 positive results. While false negatives are very treacherous, false positives, impair productivity. So how do you find proper triangulation to contextualize in order to go beyond transaction monitoring and do a predictive kind of a thing will be a challenge. In other words, what we are looking at is that we must all the time think from a design angle rather than a bought out and spoon fed kind of an angle. The imperfections of data in our organizations is humongous. And we know the behavior when we will call this. Another thing is that, second tip for all of you, is that whiteboard a network graph for different types of threats or threat surfaces that you have. And threat in terms of fighting financial crime is that, as always is the case, the criminal has the advantage of a surprise. And the enterprise has the onerous responsibility of predicting what could be that surprise. And that could be millions and billions of combinations. So make that network graph, whether 2D or 3D, I think technologies are available, where what in IT they are called, rather than a single lens examination of a transaction banking, we go to a panoramic X-ray. Many machines are watching, many machines are able to penetrate beyond the surface, and intelligence penetration beyond the surface. Not just, we cannot have enough human beings or enough computers to analyze simple images. It must be pre-processed, because today it is firmly established that it is not eliminating human beings that are necessary in crime prevention. in crime prevention specifically, because privacy is involved, reputation is involved, legal consequences are involved, human beings must be there. But assisted human beings will be probably the way forward. Now, there is another important body I told about 2 or 3 is called the European Financial Action Task Force, which has recommended a template. I request all the risk people who are present here, who are dealing with fighting financial crime, we need to do things which are, which recognizes these realities on the ground. And there is something called a community intelligence. Even here, the things like Seaside, whatever it is doing, or Certain, whatever it is doing, is all good. But at the end, I must say that reasoning must be risk-based. It cannot be that the tail is wagging the dog. A transaction monitoring, determining the formulation and design of a crime, cyber crime or financial crime framework is like the tail wagging the dog. Please return it to a risk-based reasoning. Second is that, the intelligence must be integrated. The synergy value of intelligence is humongous. Third is that, develop a library of crime stories. When we were young bankers, in SBI, when I joined, at that time we used to say, what is the modus operandi of the fraudster? What system or process lapses led to the fraud getting committed? What the operatives should do? That is the standard template. We used to get, a red color paper printed fraud circular. We used to call it fraud circular. So we need to bring these stories, subject it to a aggregation through intervention of natural language processing or whatever big data processing engines or we have, and collect it from multiple sources, because a mule account is merely hopping between accounts. But why do you know that it could be going from, account to account, it could be going from account to cash to goods to real estate to accounts. So, there are n number of multiple ways. So we need to do that. And last is that, please build in, because these financial crimes are unlikely to remain merely financial crimes. They will become fungible in nature. Financial to real, financial to human resources, because everything gets compromised. Your defenses, if it is only looking at an account for the transactions to detect a mule, or if a new account or an account's attributes can be done into, we are innovating something called mulehunter.ai in RBI Innovation Hub. So you need to look at what are the things that we need to do. And again, my advice will be, please go back to basic principles. Look at these 4 or 5 things. No rocket science to it. But design principles and principles based on an approach from the basics is always your North Star. Thank you very much.